We shouldn't have to have our conversation stimulated by prescriptions. We shouldn't have to have our conversation depend on an outside source of energy for its belief. When it comes to the process of justification, when it comes to justification, it is about embalming the conscience of the conversation so that from within, our belief can move out. This process of justification is a process of our faith developing culture. And in order for our faith to develop culture, we actually have to discover our own culture, and we cannot discover the culture of our faith so long as we are bringing into our conversation other devotional, religious, or spiritual cultures. So this is why it is key to key term abstain from certain habits of devotion, from certain habits of mind, that through such abstinence we may be able to develop a confidence in a body of understanding to carry our confidence to sustain our human being. You know, we shouldn't be doing anything for the Bible for the sake of just doing it. We shouldn't be doing anything for the Bible for the sake of fulfilling a quote-unquote religion. We shouldn't be doing anything on the Bible to stay on par with what is popularly accepted in the religious world or in the theological realms. We shouldn't be doing anything concerning the Bible except for developing or cultivating culture of person, culture of devotion. And it is the matching of our devotional character to the devotional character within the Bible and that experience that is to lead to the influencing of our human being understanding who it is. Our human being understanding who and what it is, it could then move on. Move on to industry. Move on to love, self and another. Move on to what it is born to engage personally and within and with society. All of this has to first take place through the process of justification, which is the process of our faith marrying our conversation to give birth to a spark, so that that spark can allow us to know how we are to heal ourselves and also how we are born to heal society. None of this can take place unless certain steps are taken. And sure, there is a step of understanding, there is a step of habit, there's a step of this, there's a step of that, but what we've been focusing on is a step of loss, this step of loss. And it's not foreign to think about, because if we're going to have the mind of the living God, we cannot have the mind of what the opinion of God is. So we only know the opinion of what the living God's mind is due to Pastor so-and-so, whatever website we turn to, whatever book we're reading, everything but the scriptures we get our information from. Now the Bible's calling for us to turn to the scriptures so that we can actually, in a sense, let it go. Turning to the scriptures and retaining what is within it, we can then let that go and experience what we have retained to get a knowledge of it. And this is why it says in the book of Luke 14:26, Luke chapter 14:26, Luke chapter 14 and verse 26, if a man come to me and hate not his father and his mother and wife and children and brethren and sisters, even his own life also, he cannot be my disciple. And this isn't calling for the literal father, mother, so on and so forth. This is calling for the foundation of our denominational birth. We can't hold on. We can't hold on to the foundational father, the foundational mother, the foundational brother, sister philosophies, and continue to honor the scriptures and the mind that is within it, because what is in here within the Bible, it is not what we know, and it is not what we are brought up to know in our denominational understanding within the religious world. There has to be a cutting off, and it is that loss and that cutting off and the act of doing it that strengthens us to know who our faith is. And this is the absolute point. The absolute point is for us to know what and who our faith is, so that our faith can then know who and what it is. Now we can think about this in a practical sense, because everything we go through in life serves for a purpose. I'll say that in another way. It's that the pain we go through, the pain we persevere through, that is what defines purpose. Our pain, on one hand, defines purpose on the other. Not knowing leads to knowing. Being cut off or cutting oneself off, no matter from what or from who, leads to actually attaining and being connected. Not to what was before, but to what is and does now matter. It is the same concept with our faith. It is the same concept with our devotional conversation and with its conscience. The task to go through the scriptures will lead the sincere conversation to cut off its former belief and to suffer the loss of its former opinion, so that it then has room to cultivate its own. That's what this is about. This is about cultivating for the purpose of exercising. And that's a perfect way to put it. Cultivating for the perfect way to exercise what was cultivated. What is cultivated is an understanding in the living God's devotional character. What is originally cultivated, what we are born into or inherit, or in some cases adopt from within the religious world and from denominational belief, is a theory about the living God's devotional character. And so we find ourselves going from this place to that place, from so-and-so pastor to another so-and-so pastor, and we're not fed within. We're not fed within because what is within us, it's not what is out there. We have a purpose and an intention for turning to the scriptures that only we can feed, that only we can feel. And so feeding that, feeling that, it is our right. It is our right. It is our responsibility to take care of our faith and its intellect, so that the living God can then do what the living God needs to do, so that we can keep doing what we need to keep doing, to let the living God keep doing what the living God should be doing for our faith. This is the process of justification. This is, in essence, what is called the kingdom of God. It is the disposition of the living God's thoughts and feelings for our conversations, conscience, and it is achieved through the process of justification. Yet the process of justification cannot take place until we are willingly able to make the decision to abstain from what we think we know. I'm not saying abandon, because we still have to have it in mind. Abstain from the routine. Abstain from the habit. Cultivate new habits that allow the living God's influence into our personal, human, and devotional life character. And this may sound strange, may sound strict, may sound foreign, but it is not. Just read, you can't be my disciple if you're not willing to cut yourself off from your familiar base. If you're not willing to Abraham yourself, there's no way you can receive the blessing of Abraham. And that's also the point of it, Galatians 3:13 and 14. The whole point of that crucifixion was to illustrate the new reception of the blessing of Abraham. The blessing of Abraham was a cutting off of former information and knowledge and the gaining of new by experiencing belief. And belief predicated on knowing. Knowing predicated on experimenting. Experimenting predicated on exercising. And that exercising predicated on having a relationship with the living words of the living God. Family, I want to thank you. I want to thank you for tuning in. I want to thank you for being attentive to the message. Everything that I'm giving to you has been placed and laced onto my heart by our Father, and due to its benefit in my life, I have been inspired to share it with others. And the reactions that I'm getting have been beautiful because we're all going through the same thing. We're all going through the same thing. We're all going through the same struggle. We all got the same attitudes. We all got the same everything. But it helps to know that there is a mind that crafted a wisdom who is the creator of our human being and our conversations, conscience, and body. And so, taking all of this into perspective, it made such an impression on me. I'm thankful to you for being attentive. And I'm thankful to you for caring also for your own human and devotional or spiritual condition. So I'm interrupting this meeting, a meeting in which I know you are being fed, to give a shout out to my sponsors. Grammarly, thank you. Grammarly, if you are into writing as I am, if writing is your life as writing is my life, Grammarly is the key to use to get your writing beyond par. Beyond par. It's simple to use, very simple to use, and it's very key to getting to the point of what isn't so obvious in your writing. So if you are a writer like me, publishing, any sort of blogging, anything that you do, that you put out to benefit another, Grammarly is the way to go. And also the American Bible Society, Bibles.com. The American Bible Society, if you love the Bible like I do, and if you need a new Bible or just would like a collection, American Bible Society, you can find everything and anything related to the Bible on this website. Thank you for tuning in. And so turning to the book of John. Turning to the book of John 4, verses 24 and 25. John chapter 4, verses 24 and 25. John chapter 4, verses 24 and 25. Reads, Verily, verily, I say unto you, except a corn of wheat fall into the ground and die, it abideth alone, but if it die, it bringeth forth much fruit. He that loveth his life shall lose it. He that hateth his life in this world shall keep it unto life eternal. And in the very beginning of our meetings together, we took a look at this verse and reviewed it. We actually dissected it. And in episodes after, looked at this definition of life. And even just now, still we are going at this definition of life, because this isn't a call to end one's literal life. Have to remember, I say this repeatedly, and I don't think it will ever get exhaustive, but John 4:24, we're going to take that to be true. And if we're going to hold the Bible to this standard that John 4:24, God is a spirit, you have to understand that what the references within the Bible are pointing to or are directing us to, they're nothing literal primarily. They're not literal primarily. The primary sense is mental and inward. So the life that is to be cut off, the life that is to be let go of, the life that is to be let go of is not our literal, physical, natural, biological life. It is the life attached to our devotional conversation. And the life attached to our devotional conversation, it is associated with, in this verse, and by this individual speaking, as being corn. Again, except a corn of wheat fall into the ground and die, it abideth alone, but if it die, it brings forth much fruit. He that loves his life shall lose it. He that hates his life in this world, this religious world, shall keep it unto life eternal. So the life at hand, the life spoken of, is not the natural life. It is the life of our devotional character, which is also termed, quote unquote, corn. What is corn in the Bible? Isaiah 36, 16 and 17. Isaiah 36, 16 and 17. Isaiah 36, 16 and 17. Receiving word from an attacking king These are the words that king spoke to the then king of Judah. Hearken not to Hezekiah. For thus saith the king of Assyria, make an agreement with me by a present, and come out to me, and eat ye every one of his vine, and every one of his fig tree, and drink every one the waters of his own cistern, until I come and take you away to a land like your own land, a land of corn and wine, a land of bread and vineyards. And here we have the Bible making associations once again. We've seen before that this is how the Bible educates on terms. The Bible is associating corn with bread. We know that wine, corn and wine, land of bread and vineyards, wine synonymous with vineyards. Corn is synonymous with bread. Corn and bread are the same illustration. In the book of Hosea 14, 6 and 7, Hosea 14, 6 and 7, Hosea 14, 6 and 7 reads, there be many that say, who will show us any good? Lord, lift thou up the light of thy countenance upon us. Thou hast put gladness in my heart more than in the time that their corn and their wine increased. Again, association between corn and wine. So here we have bread, corn, and wine equaling the same thing. That the Bible's mind, bread, corn, and wine are equaling the same thing. So when we're hearing life, when we're hearing that one ought to lose, one ought to gain life, we are hearing that one ought to lose, one ought to gain corn, wine, or bread. Or in the same sense, corn and wine and bread, because they all mean the same thing. And this is interesting because this is letting us further know that what the Bible is saying, it's not literal. It is literal only to the sense of our conversation, and our conversation is not physical. Our devotional conversation is inward and mental, and should be. The illustration behind the living God's chief apostle's suffering crucifixion, as we have reviewed before, its foundation is based in Galatians 3 and verse 13, is that being now redeemed from the curse of the philosophy of the religious law, that crucified body represents and should rightly represent not a physical body, but a body of philosophical understanding. This body of philosophical understanding is found in what is called the law, quote unquote, the law or the religious law. Religious law meaning one is righteous, pure, retains favor to the divine eye by doing deeds and such that have been handwritten by priest and minister. This is what that body represents, and seeing it crucified means that this philosophy and that this approaching of the living God and of the scriptures is now also crucified, is now abolished. So the conversation hanging on to this form of devotion, this is where we naturally get our life, quote unquote, life from. We naturally get our quote unquote life from doing and maintaining deeds and opinions that have been handwritten, popularized, passed down, and now become theory to be taken as fact. The Bible's calling for something different. This has been the life of our conversation. And these are all figurative terms. Life of our conversation. Meaning, this has been the strength of our faith. The reliance on these theories and such, these deeds and such, these opinions and such, this way of not getting into the root of our faith's mind and such, has been our life source. The Bible's calling for us to kill that life. To kill it. To kill that life. That life of depending on an opinion, that life of depending on a routine, that life of depending on not knowing what the scriptures are saying. Kill that life and retain a new one. Retaining a new one by turning the mind to the scriptures for the reception of corn, wine, bread. Our conversation is not physical. It is mental and inward and depends on corn, wine, and bread. What does this mean? Proverbs 9:1-5. Proverbs 9:1-5. Wisdom has builded her house. She has hewn out her 7 pillars. She hath killed her beasts. She has mingled her wine. She hath also furnished her table. She hath set forth her maidens. She crieth upon the highest places of the city. Whoso is simple, let him turn in hither. As for him that wanteth understanding, she saith to him, Come, eat of my bread, and drink of my wine, which I have mingled. And so here the Bible is doing greater association. Corn, wine, bread, they all equal the same thing, which is wisdom and understanding. Corn, wine, bread, they all equal wisdom and understanding. But in a particular sense. Because what is bread? Once again, what is bread? Just reviewing Amos 8:11, simple verse. Amos 8:11, Amos 8 verses 11, Behold, the days come, saith the Lord God, that I will send a famine in the land, not a famine of bread, nor a thirst for water, but of hearing the words of the Lord. So bread, simple, knock that right out. Bread is synonymous with the words of the living God. Bread, words. Bread is synonymous with words. So when we're hearing corn and bread, we see this in the Bible, these two put together a lot. They're meaning the same thing, and the Bible's letting us know that their association is meaning the same thing, and that meaning of the same thing, words. And we can understand that bread, corn, and wine linked together, they all also mean the same thing. This is your host, Linwood Jackson Jr., checking in with you. How are you? Thank you. Thank you, family, for checking into this program. Thank you for staying tuned continually to Justification. This is a much needed topic, and based on the conversations I've had with different people, whether they be pastor or lay, it is at this time that there is a need to understand more of what the Bible is saying. And so I want to invite you to check out the book, Justification, of which this show is based off of. Check out this book. It is an in-depth research book based on this term, justification, and it allows you, the reader, to know what you can do, what I can do, what we can do collectively to make our lifestyle, devotional lifestyle, to make our devotional lifestyle that much more better, so that our human lifestyle can understand the correction it needs to make in order for the two to marry. So check out this book and please continue to enjoy this program. And so what is wine? What is wine? The book of Jeremiah 23 and verse 9 tells us, Jeremiah 23 and verse 9. The book of Jeremiah chapter 23 and verse 9. Jeremiah chapter 23 and verse 9 reads, Mine heart within me is broken because of the prophets. All my bones shake. I am like a drunken man, and like a man whom wine hath overcome, because of the Lord and because of the words of his holiness. When we're hearing wine in the Bible, my heart within me is broken, all my bones shake. I am drunken like a man whom wine hath overcome. Why? Because of the words of the living God's holiness. The attachment of wine to words make them equal. What this verse is doing, associating wine and the feeling of that with the feeling of how Jeremiah felt when consuming the living God's words. Wine, like bread, like corn, equals words. Again in the book of Isaiah 55 and verse 2. Isaiah 55 and verse 2. Isaiah 55 and verse 2 reads, Wherefore do you spend money for that which is not bread, and your labor for that which satisfieth not? Hearken diligently unto me, and eat ye that which is good, and let your soul delight itself in fatness. So when we're talking about bread, again, when we're talking about bread, When we're talking about eating that which is good, we are talking about the filling of the soul. And the filling of the soul can occur or take place by none other means in this context. Words. Words are getting the job done. Whether it is corn, whether it is wine, whether it is bread, it is words. And yes, in the Bible, there are bad illustrations of wine. Wine makes the eyes red, says the book of Proverbs. They are full of vomit due to their wine in the book of Isaiah. There is a good connotation to wine and there is a bad connotation, both equaling to the sense of being overcome with understanding. Too much understanding causing one to vomit up what they know in a negative sense. Too much understanding weighing one down and then perverting one's thoughts to then oppress another in a negative connotation. Then there is the positive sense of the words of the living God being the founding bread, the founding corn, the founding wine of the conversation. So when we're hearing this term life, when we're hearing this term connected to corn, and that corn needing to be planted, and unless it is planted, it cannot die so that it can revive, we are hearing that our conversation and the source of its life, it needs to be put to rest so that it can experience a reviving. This experiencing of that reviving, this putting to rest of our understanding, this taking a step back from our opinions, from our thoughts, from our feelings of what we are used to thinking, feeling, and believing. This act of stepping back allows us to take a better understanding, a better look, receive a better perception, to develop a culture, to cultivate a culture of what the scriptures mean to our faith individually, to our faith's intellect individually, to our conversation's conscience individually. It is this time of cultivation, this act of cultivation, this habit of cultivation, this habit of abstaining from everything that we have grown accustomed to now growing unaccustomed to it, to grow accustomed to a new way of understanding and executing the words of Scripture, which is mental, which is inward, which is carrying out through what is retained by understanding in our daily life, and then exercising and then recycling that we exercise to gain more wisdom and to gain more exercising. It's this new way that sets us apart from everyone else that is maintaining the etched out path of pastor so-and-so, mother, father, so-and-so, best friend, and such. Our ability to step out of ourselves, to suffer that loss of the conversation self, to gain the conversation self back, is in fact the process of justification leading us into better health.